the WEF has been in everything we see lately. WEF are the butt of, depending on which side of the political fence you lead, are either evil, deranged lunatics bent on world domination, or people just trying to do their best and save the planet and focus on everything that needs to change. One of the darkest aspects of the ideology of the WEF is its long-term focus on overpopulation. Many of the WEF believe that there is far too many people in the world, and that population growth must be curbed to reverse climate change and stop food shortages. According to those exposed, this view of overpopulation is a significant cause to climate change due to the amount of carbon emissions caused by each human being. The less people on the planet, then the less carbon emissions, and the more progress towards a sustainable net zero carbon emissions future. However, I feel that people should be left free to do what and live their lives the way they want. I don't believe we as a race need to change the way we live on a massive scale so quickly. I think it's important that people are given the opportunity to develop at the pace they want to develop. Developing countries should be allowed to develop just the same as we were allowed to develop in the early ages. We should not be slowing down the development of China and India and all these bigger countries. We shouldn't be slowing them down. We should be allowing them to pick up and grow and find their happy medium and develop new technologies and new ways of making their countries better. And the richer those countries become, the more they will make themselves better. But it's up to us in the first world, to give the education and show the leadership. I totally agree. However, we shouldn't be cutting our nose off to spite our face and giving ourselves expensive energy and making it so that life is uncomfortable for us. What we should be doing is educating, continuously educating, and looking for ways to make things better without affecting people. And the best way to do that, I believe, is the capital system. Where shareholders are held accountable, businesses need to make profit. In order to make profit, you need to be the most efficient you can be. And in order for that to happen, you need to revolutionize the way things are done. The more the world grows in population, the more we're going to need our engineering brains to solve our complex problems. We don't need to talk about how the world is going to be overpopulated. What we need to talk about is how we solve the problems of today. And that's where I'm going with this excerpt today. I'm not painting the WEF to be this ultra seedy, underhanded government or non-government organization. What I'm trying to point out is they have an agenda, and that agenda is not necessarily, in my opinion, conducive to humanity. So, the world population is currently sitting at 8 billion people. The latest projections by the United Nations suggest that the global population will grow from around 8.5 billion in 2030 to 9.7 billion in 2050 and up to 10.4 billion in 2100. Now, this gives us 75 years to improve, to get things running more efficiently before we have to worry about controlling any populations. Now, what I found interesting as I spent this week, I started looking at some statistics. I pulled up the populations of some of the biggest countries in the world, and what I looked for was their density of people per kilometer squared. So countries like China, who have huge 1.4 billion people, they have a density of around 153 people per kilometer squared. India is more densely populated at 1.3 billion people, or almost 1.4 billion people, but they have a density of population of 464 people per kilometer squared. Now, judging by these bits of information, it clearly shows that these countries are able to maintain a population at a density of at least 460. India predominantly manages to feed their entire population on a density of square kilometer of 460 people per square kilometer. Then if you go down to Bangladesh, although their population is much smaller, so is their country, and they're managing to feed their people on a density of 1265. Now this clearly shows that the world can survive with a lot more people, and according to my mathematics, we could easily cope with 10.4 billion on today's current knowledge. Now, Where the WEF say, like, the world population is going to cause a massive carbon footprint and I totally understand that. However, as an engineering species, as a species that have solved complex problems, we should be solving the complex problems that the global warming is creating, rather than trying to stop global warming from happening. Because ultimately, it's going to happen. We're not going to be able to slow down the entire world in time for it to be perfect. We're not going to meet any of these targets that the governments are talking about, because the world simply cannot do that and function in its current economic way. So what we need to do is we need to accept that although we want to get to that net zero, that would be that's our utopian vision for the future. The likelihood of us hitting that net zero is very, very low. And this is the point that I'm trying to make, is rather than focusing on changing the way we are, let's focus on engineering things better. Let's focus on educating the developing countries quicker. Let's give them the resources to educate themselves quicker. Let's buy their products, but force them to work in a way that's more conducive to the way we want them to work, without sacrificing their opportunities to develop their countries. Or taking advantage of them, should we say. For me, the massive issue with world population is hunger. And we talk a lot about, like, how we're going to support the amount of food people need. I did some research, and although there is no truth or single correct answer when it comes to dealing with a vegetable garden size, some sources say that 100 square feet per person is the magic number, which is only 10 square meters essentially. Now, the world population is 8 billion right now, and the usable land on Earth is 150 million square kilometers, which roughly equates to around 53.69 people per square kilometer throughout the entire planet, or our world, of usable land. If we do get to the expected population size of 10.4 billion by 2021, the only thing that changes is the density per square kilometer, and that changes to about 70 people per square kilometer on the entire world. Now, that means that the average amount of land required to feed a person is 10 square meters, and the current space allocation per person is 18 square meters, and it's going to drop down to 14.3 square meters. Now, that sounds like not very much land. However, we don't take into account a square meter and its vertical height. Now, the beautiful thing about the future is, as long as we can control our power requirements, and as long as we can get really clean and really efficient power, we can literally grow 100 meters in the air. And that is where the main changes in the world will come. When we accept that we have to use engineering methods to solve the world's problems, we have to accept that things aren't going to inherently change. But what we should be doing is creating as much green energy as we can, using our fossil fuels as cleanly and as environmentally friendly as we can. That means maybe converting, methane into clean hydrogen and storing the carbon in the ground. Why get rid of a perfect, viable fuel source to create power that can be done cleanly? It just maybe costs a bit more. Engineer the solutions. If we can engineer the solutions, we'll have enough power to convert any seawater into fresh water. We'll have enough power to grow any amount of food vertically up to 100 meters in the sky. We can make enough food. Food will never be a problem, and the carbon footprint can change over time. But we need to accept that we can't change it as quickly as we want to change it, because that's going to be the detriment of human life. And that's my point. That's my main focus, is how can we make human life as good as possible while focusing on all the negative things that we create. But rather than running away from them and persecuting ourselves, design a solution to reduce the load on the planet. How much does every household generate in CO2 a year? I did two comparisons. I went onto a UK site and I went onto an American site, and I did my family. We're a family of 4. We operate 2 combustion engines, automobiles. We eat meat 2 to 3 times a week, mostly whole foods. We don't really go overseas on holiday. We haven't done in the last 2 years. And we're moderate consumers, and we buy quality rather than quantity. So the furniture we buy and the luxuries that we buy, we try and buy them so that they last. We don't change our phones every year. We don't change our telly every 2 years. We keep everything until the point where it is no longer fit for use or it fails. And you can see it clear. We're actually still above the UK average in carbon footprint. Now, this is per person. They expect the footprint to be, my footprint is 10 tons. And the UK average footprint is 9.5 tons. And the world average is 6.3 tons. So, again, these figures don't seem to be a massive amount of carbon dioxide, of CO2. And if we compare my family's usage to American family, 30% better than an American family, yet the calculation is still 4 tons more than the UK calculation. I don't think these figures are going to cause a massive change in the world. And I think we can easily adjust things simply by just changing the way we live and accepting that money is an important key indicator on how people control their consumption and their way of life. And the more government moves away from controlling people's money, the more the free market system will allow people to control the way they choose to manage their money. If a company is a heavy producer or if a company uses a lot of CO2 or creates a lot of CO2 in the creation of their product, that should be represented in the price of the product. But again, it needs to be controlled in a slow and steady manner. It needs to be controlled in a manner that doesn't affect the livelihoods of people, because that is the most important thing. Is people need to be able to live, and people need to be able to eat, and people need to be able to enjoy their time on this planet. However, people don't need to have every single luxury. People don't need to eat meat every day. People don't need to go everywhere in a car. There is this fine line where responsibility can come into play, and we can slowly change things by changing people's mindsets, rather than telling people and forcing them to go in a certain way. We all saw how well it went in America when they stopped people drinking alcohol. Education is the foundation of civilization, providing individuals with the knowledge, skills, and critical thinking abilities needed to address complex challenges and improve their lives. In the context of population control and preserving the planet, education plays a crucial role in fostering awareness and understanding of interrelated human activities, the environment, and the depletion of its resources. An educated population is better equipped to make informed decisions about their impact on the planet, such as reducing the carbon footprint, conserving resources, and to find sustainable solutions to global issues such as overconsumption, environmental degradation, and climate change. Population should not be an issue on this planet for the next 75 years. At that point, engineering and the capitalist system will have changed the way we do certain things to allow people to survive on the planet. The more we educate people, the more we will conserve our environments. The more reason we give people to conserve their environment, the more reason they'll do it. Developing countries need to be encouraged to conserve their resources. They need to be encouraged to do what's best for their areas and their planet. And ecotourism and those types of wealth creators are huge for developing countries. Education is probably one of the most important ways people can preserve the planet. Rather than taking things away from people, education and community spirit and responsibility, I would say, are the key fundamental factors that we need to focus on in order to make sure our country and our world is preserved.